Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Hill. I'm the marketing director here at Next After, and I'm so excited that you are taking an hour out of your day. I know you have busy schedules and probably lots of things going on, especially now. There's lots of just questions up in the air about how should you be running your fundraising and online campaigns during such a crazy time. So I'm so grateful you're taking an hour out of your day to focus on learning what Google Analytics can do to help you grow your fundraising and your online fundraising in particular. Now, people are sounding off in the chat box on the right side of your screen. Feel free to keep doing that. Let us know where you're tuning in from, who you are, what organization you work with. We've got lots of different nonprofits on the webinar today, from people working in the arts, people working to care for victims of domestic violence, it looks like, people that work at food banks, museums. So all across the spectrum, everyone kind of rallying around this idea that we need to know what our donors are doing online, no matter what the cause is. It's a huge, important channel for everyone. So I'm going to hand things over to Mercer here in a couple of minutes, but there's a couple things I want to cover first. So number one, obviously times right now are a little bit crazy. And we have different ideas and thoughts on best practices and opinions on how we should be running our communications and fundraising. But we wanted to bring a little bit of data because no one knows really what to do right now exactly. This is something new, but we wanted to bring as much data as we can to this conversation as to how should we start to craft campaigns and fundraising during such a time as this global pandemic. So if you go to nextafter.com/coronavirus, you can actually see some really interesting data breaking down 150 plus nonprofits, real email volume of how often are they sending, what types of communication are they sending, are people still asking for money, are they just sending newsletters and cultivation content, how often are they mentioning coronavirus or COVID-19 in the communication. And then you can actually click in and you can see real emails that real organizations are sending to get new ideas to test in your own messaging to make sure you're staying relevant and being human and using empathy and all those good things to connect with people. So again, you can check that out at nextafter.com/coronavirus. It's totally free to check out, to just do as much as we can to empower you to be effective during this time. Now, a few things about the webinar. Number one, we are recording this. So this evening around 5 p.m. Central Time, I'll be able to send you an email with a link to the video so you can go back and dive into all the different reports and things that Mercer is going to share with you. So if you miss anything, you have that kind of as a fallback to go dive a little bit deeper. I'll also share the slide deck with you and some other featured resources that we might mention today. So you'll have all of that in your inbox later this evening. And then third, we will have a time at the very end for a little question and answer. So if you've got questions about analytics, Google Analytics specifically, that you want to ask Mercer, that have just been burning in your mind, we'll have time for that. So use that same chat box that you're using to sort of tell us where you're listening in from. Use that to ask questions all along the way. So if an idea pops up as he's going through a report, or you want to dive a little bit deeper into, hey, what does that term mean? Or how do you access this report? Pop those things in the chat. I'm going to be watching those all throughout the presentation today, and then we'll circle back on those with Mercer at the very end to get his responses. I'm going to turn things over to Chris Mercer, who is our presenter today from measurementmarketing.io. He's the founder there. He is just a wizard and a whiz and a genius related to all things data and analytics. He's put together a full certification course that's available for you at courses.nextafter.com, where you can actually get certified in Google Analytics for nonprofits. But today, he's going to focus in on 7 specific questions that you can use Google Analytics to answer about your donors and about your online fundraising. So Mercer, over to you.
Howdy, appreciate it. And thanks for having me, Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We'll go ahead and officially get started with our 7 things you didn't know Google Analytics could do to help you with your fundraising. Obviously now, more important than ever to know our numbers, because that's going to help us get through crisis times like this. Because when you can map out the territory, you can more easily navigate that territory, whether it's with your fundraising or just your marketing for awareness or anything else that you're doing. Numbers will help guide the way. And of course, analytics is a great platform for that. So before we get too far into it, I have one rule that those of you who've seen our trainings before know all about, which is the one thing rule. So with tools like Google Analytics or Tag Manager or Data Studio or anything else that you're trying to figure out when it comes to numbers, it can be incredibly easy to get overwhelmed and frustrated because there's so many numbers, there's so many data tables, there's so much information, and some things kind of look like they tell a story and some things don't, and they start contradicting each other, and it gets really easy to kind of go like, okay, I'm done with this. I'll come back to this in 3 years. Do not do that. Numbers are too important for that. Again, helping you to improve your fundraising, Google Analytics can absolutely do if you're willing to follow this one thing rule. This is the biggest tip I have for you out of everything we talk about today. Pick one new idea, one new concept, one new report, one new way of doing things that you see here today, put that into practice. And again, everyone's going to get a recording. So you get to watch it again. Every time you watch this, you will pick up a new skill from it because you're going to see it with different eyes, with different experience level. So that's the one thing concept. Just pick up one new thing, one new idea. Don't worry about trying to hang on to every single thing that I do here today, especially if you start feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. Like, I don't even know how he got there. Just that's fine. Don't worry about it. Go back to whatever the previous thing was I showed and pick it up from there. All right. So with that, I'm going to give you, hopefully, what will be a one thing for many of you, which is what I think is the secret. This is what it took me a long time to realize this too, but this is the secret to Google Analytics. I started, like many of you, going into my Google Analytics to figure out what was happening. And that was what I did for many, many years. I was like, okay, we're doing a bunch of marketing. We're doing a bunch of advertising. We're doing a bunch of actions. We're trying to get people to our site. Let's go into analytics and find out what's happening. And that was all I was doing, was going in with that sort of attitude. And like many of you, I got batted around by Google Analytics. So the reason that happened is because I went in unarmed. And I didn't realize I had to go in armed, but it is true. You cannot go into Google Analytics unarmed. What do we mean by that? You have to go into Google Analytics always, always, always by starting with first a question in mind. And of course, this is what brings us today, the things that we're going to talk about today, the things you didn't know analytics can do. We're going to phrase them in forms of questions because this is the most important step when it comes to using Google Analytics is you've got to go into it with a question already in mind. So you're not going in to see what's happening. You're not going in to find out what's interesting because all you're going to do is see a bunch of information, get overloaded and leave frustrated because you won't actually have any clear idea of what to do. But when you go in with a question in mind, you go into a very focused report with a focused purpose, you will get an answer. Ideally, that answer is going to lead you to action. Okay, so you always end with action. So you go in and you think about your question that you're asking, and then you think before you even go into analytics, you think about that question and you think about the actions that you're going to take based on the answers that you get. And just kind of role play it. So I'll give you some examples as we go through today, of course, but whatever question it is, just think through, okay, well, if the answer is A, then I'm going to do this. And if the answer is B, then I'm going to do this. And you sort of think about that ahead of time, then go into Google Analytics, because all of a sudden, when you find that answer, it has more context and it becomes a lot easier to actually start taking action from all that information. And it stops becoming information, to be honest. It becomes answers, which you can actually take action on. All right, so let's go into some examples, speaking of action. And we're going to start with question number one, right? What are the things that we didn't know Google Analytics can do? We're going to ask this question, and we're going to start basic. So for those of you who have some experience, hang with me because we'll get into some more advanced things. And again, for those of you who are not experienced at all, love this part. Make this your one thing so you have some chance to practice and then come back to pick up the more advanced things a little bit later on. But one of the questions you might be asking, you should be asking, are what pages are my donors seeing first? Now, why is that important? Because first impressions. These are the pages. This is analytics' way of telling you these are the pages that people see first when they first arrive to your site. So there's a couple of things we can think about when it comes to actions. Number one, is the first impression that I think I'm making, is that actually what's happening? Is that what people are seeing first? Number two is, are there any surprises? Right? So if I go into this report and I see a page where I'm like, well, that shouldn't be the first page that they see. How are they getting there? Maybe there's something broken with our donor journey. Maybe there's a link that was set up to the wrong page. Maybe we think it's the homepage, but it ends up not being the homepage. Like you'll see things like that in this particular report. So how do we answer that question as far as what pages people are seeing? I'm going to use my own Google Analytics. This is our production. This is the real Google Analytics for my company at measurementmarketing.io. And so we're going to walk you through how to find all these. So when you come into Google Analytics, you're always going to start at the home screen. When you come into the home screen, we're going to go down into behavior. Now, why are we in the behavior section? Because the behavior reports are all about the actions that people are taking. One of those actions is pages that they're seeing. So we're going to go into where it says site content. So we go to behavior and we go to the site content. And what pages are they seeing first? Analytics has a report specifically built for that, which is this landing page report. So landing pages tells you, it's Google Analytics version of the truth, of course, but it's telling you what Google Analytics is seeing as the very first page that your donors are seeing. So you're obviously, in our case, we're a for-profit company, but the concept would be very similar here. So in my particular case, I know that the vast majority, so I've got this many visits, it calls them sessions here in Google Analytics. Just think about that as a visit. That's all it is when your users visit. And we can see here, measurementmarketing.io, which is our homepage, gets the majority of our visits. In this case, about 40%. One of the questions you're going to ask yourself every time you're in Google Analytics is, does this make sense, right? Is this something that makes sense? Does it make sense that you should see my homepage first? In my case, absolutely, because that is our company name, our brand name is our website name. We're going to get a lot of traffic to the homepage. That makes sense. I personally do not send any marketing directly to that page. I send the marketing to this page, which is a Toolbox membership that we have. So I expect this page to be second. And then if we're doing a lot of paid traffic, I might see it first. So right now, already in Google Analytics, it's telling me the story of what I expect to see, which is, okay, vast majority of people are going to come into the homepage. And then of those, the second page probably is going to be our Toolbox membership, which it is. And then from there, I can go down and I can see, okay, what other information are people seeing first in terms of maybe product pages? So we have different product pages that we're seeing. All of this for now, I'm saying, okay, does this make sense? Yes, it does for me, right? For our particular company. So I know what pages are being seen first. And in my particular case, there are no actions required because I'm not seeing any surprises, with one exception, which is a little bit of formatting here that we're already working on because we'd seen this earlier. So we've got the little homepage here. It says the homepage here and then HTTPS. So when you see things like this, there's something off with the implementation. So you got to go back and say, okay, somebody tweaked something. Let's go back and fix that, right? So we still have a useful truth of what's going on back here, but I want to fix it because what I'm seeing here is this page, which is the Toolbox page, is the same as this page, but they're not combined. They're split up as fractured information, right? And I don't want to see that. So our team's already going back there going, okay, we obviously adjusted something, so they're going to go back and change it and combine it. You will also see things like that. So that's an example of some things where you go, okay, that doesn't quite look right, doesn't quite make sense from that technical implementation. Let's go back and fix it. But otherwise, the story that I'm seeing is vast majority is Toolbox and homepage, which for us is exactly what's supposed to happen. If I had a particular campaign that I was running right now as a paid traffic campaign, I would expect that landing page, whatever page I'm pointing to, in your case, maybe it's a donation page or some sort of request page that you have going on, you would expect that page to be in this list. And if it's not, you want to go back and check, okay, what's going on with that campaign? Or maybe, something's off with your Google Analytics implementation. So that itself is the landing page report. Now, the next question that you might ask about specifically around donors is, okay, what are they Googling for before they hit my site? Now, Google Analytics actually does a pretty good job of telling you where traffic sources are coming from. So it'll tell you where your users are coming from. And I'll show you that in just a second. But it will actually tell you a little bit more about the Google stuff. So if you have Google Ads, you can link Google Ads. If you have Google Search Console, you can actually link Search Console in, which we've done in ours, and I'll show you what that looks like. But the idea of being able to hook in some things like Google Ads and Search Console is Google starts sharing information from those platforms, from Google Ads or from Search Console, into Google Analytics. So you have a more complete picture of your users even before they saw your site. So in this particular case, we're asking about, okay, I want to know about and I'm obviously calling them donors in this case, but in my case, the users that are coming through, what were they Googling for? What were they trying to search for on Google before they actually arrived to my site? Now, this helps me. What actions can we take with this? Because this helps me understand them better, understand what they're looking for, understand what Google thinks is important, because Google's showing what's going to show me where it's ranking me for those different search phrases, so that I can actually go, okay, this is a search phrase people are looking for. Maybe I should generate blog posts about it or content about it. Or this is a search phrase people are looking for. Google's actually putting up the exact right page that I want them to put up. This is great, right? And everything's working fine. I just need to maybe scale some SEO traffic. So we can find out, we can take those sort of actions based on getting an answer to this particular question. So let's show you how to do this. Now, when we go into Google Analytics, for this particular one, we're asking how the users found us, where they came from. Okay, so it's where the users came from. Everything around where the users are coming from is going to be under acquisition, because it's to acquire a user, in your case, a donor, right? So you're acquiring your donors. So acquisition reports will tell you all about that. So we're going to go into acquisition reports, and then we go to Search Console, because we're asking about Google traffic specifically. So this Google search traffic specifically, everything in Search Console is coming from Search Console in google.com, which is that is you using SEO, probably already have this set up. If not, definitely set Search Console up. But when you do that, you connect it to Google Analytics and you basically enable all of these reports. I'm going to start with the one that we just finished off of, which was landing page report. But this is a different landing page report. And this is where analytics can get a little confusing, I realize. But this landing page report, which is the one that's under the Search Console, under acquisition, right? The other one we looked at was in the behavior, because it was the actions they were seeing. This particular set of landing pages is just Google organic search traffic. So it's just the users, just the donors that are coming from Google Organics. It's a subset, a little segment of that. So here I'm seeing, okay, I've got my home pages and you see impressions at 2,200. What's the difference between impression and a session? Remember, a session is just a visit, right? When the donors come in and they load up your page, the visit starts and it records a session. That's what it's called in Google Analytics, a session. But an impression is on the search side of things before they even get to my site. So I can see here how many times this particular page as a landing page was actually in the listings of Google, which is pretty nice to see. So I can go through here and I can see this. I can also see of the times where it was listed, how many times was it actually clicked on and then I get a little click-through percentage here. So this tells me on search, Google search itself, how many times my homepage loaded up, how many times of the times that it loaded up, how many people actually click through to it to come to my site to create that session. I also know the average position, right? Based upon just every possible search that's going on. And I can see the number of sessions that were created specifically from Google organic traffic for that particular landing page. And then I can do the same thing with different blog posts that are coming through here. We've got other offer pages that are coming through here. You might have donor pages or blog pages yourself that are going to be listed here. So you can see all of that. And remember, this particular report, the same landing page report, but it's within the Search Console, is telling us all about our search traffic. Now, what's really nice about this report is if I click down, let's just learn more about this measurement marketing.io traffic. If I click into this page, and you should do this whenever you're in analytics to kind of click through just to see, sometimes they go somewhere, sometimes they don't. But in this particular report, it does. It goes another level. And remember, the question was, what were people searching for before they saw my site? The first page was, or the first question was, what pages are they seeing first? So we kind of see, okay, well, from organic traffic, these are the pages they're seeing first, measurement marketing.io page. When I click into that, guess what I see? I see search phrases. I see the queries that are coming through. So this is the amount of queries, and we only have 10, but there's 72 here. So I'm just going to expand this out. A little pro tip. A lot of people don't realize that to check out here for all the answers, but we can see here, people are searching for marketing measurement. Now, when they look for marketing measurement, of those 2,000 times that I was in the search results, or at least that page was in the search results, 500 of those times it was listed from marketing measurement. Didn't have any click-throughs. Why not? Probably because the average position is not all that great. It's at 20. So if I wanted to make adjustments to improve my traffic, I might start changing some of the phrasing on my page to talk about marketing measurement to match what people are searching for. So this is an example of some actions I can take to improve my traffic coming in. Now, look at the difference here when they search for me personally. So we have a lot of people that search for my name. So Chris Mercer, and then I'll have impressions. So that many times I was listed. Then look at the click and the click-through rate. Click-through rate's high in this case, 4%. It's pretty decent. Why? Because I'm listed on top pages, 6.8. So I'm in the top 10 here. So I'm getting more clicks. People are coming, finding me and coming to the measurementmarketing.io site, because that page, that measurementmarketing.io homepage, is being listed and associated with my personal name, obviously because of events like this that we're hosting. Then we've got measurement marketing as an example, number 5 here. Measurement marketing 130 times, but look at that click-through rate. Now, does that make sense? Of course it does, because my company name is measurementmarketing.io. All we ever talk about is measurement marketing. So people will, of course, Google measurement marketing. And when they do, measurementmarketing.io lists. Where does it list? Number 1. We're the number 1 spot. During this date range. So it's great. So I can see here, huge click-through rate for measurement marketing. So we're doing great with measurement marketing. Maybe I've got a little bit more room to work with marketing measurement though. And I can change this because there's some traffic that I'm not getting any clicks from that I could probably help these people, because it's kind of the same thing. They're just not doing it in this exact way. These are the actions I can now take as a business, and think about it, what you can take as a nonprofit when you're coming through saying, okay, this is the blog post they saw. What were they looking for? Did that blog post actually help them with that? I'm going to show you an example of that. I'm going to go up to the very top here. We're going to click where it says all, and all this is going to do is take us back to the original level. So now we're going to go back to these landing pages. So here's a blog post that we had on tracking sales funnels in Google Analytics. So if I click on there, I do the same thing. So now landing page, 1 level deep. So now I'm looking at my search queries. Okay, sales funnels, analytics, I can see all listed here. So I've got all these different phrases listed, but I don't have any click-throughs on any of these. So what I would look for here is, okay, how well is this? Because again, look where I'm listed, right? So if you look at average position, so the average position is really low. And in fact, if I go, I can see 105 different examples here. And this gets a little crazy. So when you're looking through here, again, a lot of people have this concern of like, but Google doesn't show me every single query. It shows you enough. It shows you enough to be useful when it comes to this. So I can see people searching for click funnels in Google Analytics, Google Analytics funnels, sales funnel visualization, funnel visualization. I can go through here, Google Analytics funnel, marketing funnel now, analytics. So I can go through here and I can look at that blog post and say, okay, well, how can I get that? These are what people are looking for. And you can see how many different variations are back here. Imagine what you can learn about your donors. This is what they're searching for. This is the intent, right? They're not on Google trying to just, shop around. They're on Google trying to solve problems. It's really a good spot to be in. So if you can learn what they're searching for, it can really help you to craft your content. And in my case, I can go back to this blog post and say, okay, how do we get this blog post to rank higher? Because whenever I see this, where the signals are all telling me it's ranked on page 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, right? When I see stuff like that, I'm like, okay, Google does not think we're a credible enough source. That particular blog post is not credible enough to rise in the rankings. So how can I adjust that blog post so that it does? And then we would, practice and get some experimentation. So I can see here how to create a funnel in Google Analytics. Google does think we are, right? We're listed number 7 in this case, but we only had 2 impressions, which means not a lot of people are actually looking for this. They're not typing this in the box. They're typing one of these in the box, right? One of these other like sales funnel analytics. And so how do we get our page to rank higher for these? And again, it's changing some of the content on the pages, working with your SEO person or your traffic person, but this can help you to guide that. You improve your traffic, you have potential more donors coming to your site. So this already in Google Analytics is a huge win, being able to grab this. All right, so let's talk about the third question. We're only 2 questions in. You can already see how much stuff you can already learn. So what are my emails? This is an important question. Are my emails bringing in donations? When Nathan first started this whole thing out, he talked about the nextafter.com/coronavirus. I think that is an amazing site to be able to go look for and see actual emails that people are sending to how they're messaging and how they're actually interacting with it. So if you haven't done that, be sure to do that right after this. But one of the questions that those nonprofits should be asking are those emails working? Well, how would they know, right? How do they know if they're actually bringing in donations? Well, we can measure for that. We can actually use Google Analytics for that. So let me show you where you would actually go forth and do that. Now we're asking that type of question again, where are my users coming from? Okay. Now, in this case, the previous question was all about search traffic, right? What are they Googling for and what are they doing when they come to my site? And we learned a lot about that. But in this case, it's okay, email traffic coming in. Again, it's traffic coming to your site still, but it's from email. So where would it be? Would it be behavior because it's more about actions while they're on your site? Or is it more acquisition because that's coming where they're coming from? And hopefully you're thinking acquisition because that's exactly right. So acquisition reports, again, are all about where the users are coming from. But in this case, we're not going to go into Search Console because that's just about Google.com stuff. That's it. The all traffic covers every traffic source for you. So we're leveling it up now. So now we're in all traffic. What we're going to do is we're going to go to source medium. Now, this is a incredibly cool report. So the source medium report is my favorite report. It's the one report that rules them all, in my opinion. This will tell you where your different traffic sources are coming from, all of them. Right? All of them at Google sees, it'll tell you. So we can see here, and I'm going to cover the big 3, and then I'll get into the email one. So the big 3 are direct none. Now, you will have a lot of direct none like we do if your brand name is your website. Just expect direct none to always be the top. So in my case, my company name is not Measurement Marketing, it's measurementmarketing.io. Our site name, measurementmarketing.io. When people are typing it in, it's measurementmarketing.io. We're going to have a lot of direct none traffic because that's just how it's going to work, right? That's our name. But if our company was just Measurement Marketing and that was it, we would see less direct none traffic. So if your website is your name, this would be one of the few times where I would say, okay, you're going to have a lot of direct none traffic. All this means is Google's telling you, I have no idea they just showed up, right? We don't have a traffic source. I don't know of a traffic source. They just typed it in and showed up, or there was just no other way of knowing what happened. So that's direct none. We talked about organic, right? In this case, Google organic, but this is organic traffic is everything coming from search engines. So you could have other like Baidu or Ask or Yahoo organic, Bing organic might be coming in. So you can see that's organic traffic, all search traffic. And then down here, you've got referrals. So see right here under 7, 8, 9, we've got referral traffic. What this is Google Analytics telling you, okay, they've come from that site over there. And that site referred you. So they were just on, in this case, Facebook, and then they came over to your site. That's what a referral is. In this case, they were on this measure.tips link and they came over. That's what a referral is. So we have that. Now, this other challenge that you're going to have, and this is where I would ask you to look, is in your direct none traffic. Remember, this is truly Google saying, I don't know, they just showed up. One example that is very legitimate is in our case, our name, measurementmarketing.io, people just type it in and they just show up. So Google, that's direct traffic. That's legitimate direct none traffic. But if I sent out emails and I just said, hey, go check out my offer, or in your case, you're sending out emails to your potential donors saying, hey, here's this package, will you please donate? And you give them to a page, chances are that will also show up as direct none. Because if you think about it, they're in their email system, Outlook or wherever, they're clicking on a link, the browser opens up, it opens up a tab with the page you want them to go to. So to Google Analytics, it's going to be direct none. Now that is not legitimately direct none traffic because they didn't actually type that in. You sent them there from a traffic source, in that case, email, but Google Analytics didn't know that. So you can actually tell Google Analytics that. You can see that we're doing that right here with Infusionsoft email traffic. So in this case, Infusionsoft email, we use Infusionsoft as our CRM. It's what sends out our emails, our autoresponders, our broadcasts. You might be using MailChimp or Klaviyo or some other platform, but we've told Google Analytics that, hey, this is the platform we're using, and this is an email traffic source, right? So we have email coming through. So we know that it's not going to be in our direct none bucket here. This is the emails. So we can see where the emails are. That's step number one. We have to identify that. And then step number two is when you're trying to tie it to results is we could measure it for setting up a goal. So you might set up a goal in Google Analytics, and then you can see, okay, I've got Infusionsoft email, how many goals were achieved. A goal for you might be signed up to become a donor, to get more information about a donor, might be a goal of actually creating a donation as well. So you can see that, and you can tie in the traffic source, in this case, email, because that was the question we're trying to answer. Are emails actually working or not? So to emails, to our actual donations coming through, and again, goals can be used for this. So if you don't have e-commerce set up, which can be a little technically difficult sometimes, anybody here watching this, you're watching this now, you can absolutely set up a goal. Just put it to your thank you page of your donation and say, okay, at least I know that a donation was achieved. And I can then tell, are my emails producing the results that I want? So in my case, I can go through and take a look at different pages we have set up, different goals that we have set up for different pages, different stages of the customer journey. In your case, the donor journey that would be here. And you can go through and you can measure for all that. And you'll see which traffic sources are really good about bringing people to your blog, which traffic sources are really good about getting people to actually be interested in donating, which traffic sources are really good about getting them actually donate. And here's one, which ones are really good at getting them to donate again. You can set up separate pages for that and traffic source tagging. Now, in order to do this, it's something called UTMs. So I'm going to show you kind of where to get this for those of you who have not heard about it. So if you just do Google, we're going to do the Googles, Google URL Builder. There are also free tools that are available in that course that you'll have access to as well. So you'll see lots of free tools and links coming through here. But I wanted you to be aware of this because it's kind of where everything starts initially, sort of like way back in the day when they first started this. So the URL builder is something that you can use. Next After also has a URL builder that you can use. So you can come in here, type in your site. So in my case, I'm just going to call it mysite.com. And then you can type in, okay, what's the campaign source? So now these campaign things here, these are just the traffic tags you're identifying so that Google Analytics, when they arrive, Google Analytics will know which traffic source to file them under. So the source is just the brand name. So if I was using an email for us, I'm going to call it Infusionsoft because we use Infusionsoft. Again, if you use MailChimp or Klaviyo or any other platform that's out there doing emails, you would just put in that traffic source. The type of traffic is the medium. I know it's kind of a confusing name, but medium is just the type. It's like, what is the type of traffic? The type of traffic is email for us. So we do that. The campaign name, that's the purpose of the traffic. So I might do it for Win if it's for the Win Monthly Pass program we have. I might do it for Academy if it's a Measure Marketing Academy that I am pointing them toward. And then the term and the content, these are optional, but you can put additional details in. So a lot of times in our emails, we'll put in the subject lines or we'll put in location information as far as where the email is in our system in case we ever need to change it. And so when you do that, if you come down here, you'll scroll down. This is what I mean by UTMs. And when you go to your emails and you start clicking on links, look in the browser window, look in the URLs up here. You will see these things called UTMs everywhere now. You'll see where it says UTM_source equals Infusionsoft, UTM_medium equals email, UTM_campaign equals Academy in this case. Well, that's how Google Analytics will know when they come to this page, it's going to put it under the Infusionsoft traffic source. The medium will be email. The purpose of it will be for the Academy. That's how it knows. So it's very simple. You can also just type these in. You don't have to use a form to do it or a tool to do it. You can just type them in as well. But when you do that, if I come through here, I'm just going to type in email. So we're back in my analytics. I'm going to use a little table filter, it's called here, but I'm just going to search for email traffic right now. So I'm telling it, just show me my email traffic. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to measure our Infusionsoft email traffic, but I also like to measure my own personal email traffic. So if somebody's out there, they send me a question and I say, yeah, you want to take a look at this particular program or something like that, I will link it and I will know that it was my personal email because in this case, I am the brand, right? The Mercer brand. So I am sending it from my personal email. I can come through and I can see what pages they come to. I can see what results happen for whatever the goals I'm trying to achieve. So even if you're a small team, maybe you're not even sending out a ton of email and you don't have an email provider, you're just doing a lot of Gmail and stuff like that, you can still do this. you can still do this, and you should, because then you can see, who in your team is actually causing the result to happen, right? Which emails are working, which ones aren't. If I come into my Infusionsoft email, I'm going to click into this. Remember I said sometimes these lead to something, sometimes they don't. So if I click into this, you'll notice in this particular case, nothing happens. So in this case, it's sort of isolating it, right? Just isolating it. And one of those things that I can do, and again, this is using UTMs, but you can put in things like this. And again, you just use the UTMs to do it. So we won't go into too many details as to how to do this, because it's going to basically be using this form or a tool like the Next After tool, the ones that we have. But you can go through there and you can code these. So this is how we know the subject lines that were coming through. So I can see welcome to the toolbox. I can see certification updates or next steps. So I can see the subject lines that were coming out. And now, not only do I know if email was working or not, but I know which emails were working. So if you have a series of donation emails that you're sending out to your donors, right? And one is like, hey, learn about this, please donate. The other one is like, wanted to make sure that you saw this, please donate. The other one is like, here's how others are donating, please donate. And the other one is, here's some other great things that this program is doing, please donate. Well, you can measure each of those because you'll actually be able to look up by the actual, if you put it in there using UTMs, because you can, putting in their subject lines, you can actually break it down and see which ones are producing actual donations. And that'll help you to improve things. Again, analytics custom built to do this stuff. It's amazing. It's just what it does. So it's all back there for you in the source media report using the power of UTMs. And at the very, very least, just setting up a goal that says, okay, yes, they've made a donation. Just make it a UTM, a page goal. Set it up in the goals. Very, very easy to do that. Okay. So with that, we've answered that question about email traffic. So now we know where email traffic is coming from. Well, let's get back into that direct none stuff, because I would venture to say most of you, if you go back in your source media report, you will see direct none. And for most of you, that's like your nemesis. That's the job, is to figure out, okay, where is this traffic really coming from? Because maybe you don't have, as we do, you don't have a company name that is the exact same as your website. Now, if you do, again, you're going to have a lot of direct none no matter what. But that I would make the assumption, I think it's more useful to think about that direct none, there's probably other traffic sources that you should be using UTMs instead, right? Where you could be using UTMs. So how do you figure that stuff out? So one of the questions, again, this is the actions we would take here is, okay, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to figure out where this is really coming from. And then now that I know about these UTMs and setting up goals, I'm going to go create UTMs because I want to go see if it's email traffic or something like that. How do we figure that out? So we're going to go into our Google Analytics. Again, where are we going? Because we're talking about traffic sources now. Still the acquisition reports, still the all traffic report, still the source medium report. So we're back in the source medium. Only this time, instead of talking about email traffic, we're going to go into where it says direct none. Why are we isolating direct none? Because we're asking questions just about direct none. And now what are we going to do? We're going to do something called secondary dimension. And you saw me just very quickly do this when we talked about the keywords before. Secondary dimension is a way to break down further. So instead of just the one, what they call a dimension here, the things you're sorting by, in this case, the source medium is direct none, just the one dimension, what they call the primary dimension, you can add a second thing. So I want to break this down further. In this case, what I think is the most useful is a landing page. Okay, so we're back to that landing page report. So you can see how just a couple of things, understanding traffic and understanding landing pages, you can get an awful lot done with Google Analytics. We haven't learned a ton of Google Analytics, and yet you can still get 80% of the stuff done you want to get done just with those two things. So now I've added source medium, only this time broken down by, again, secondary dimension, they call it, broken down by landing page. So it's a whole different picture. So I can see here direct none traffic. Remember, we were thinking, okay, well, they're all coming from measuremarketing.io. So I can see these two are basically the homepage. So I say, yeah, okay, still a decent chunk, about 60% of it is still direct none coming to our homepage. Again, does that make sense? For us, it does, because our company name is our website name. But if I come through here and I see this little measuremarketing.io, I see this was direct none traffic, and it came into the Academy page. So these are people that are coming directly into the offer page. Now, I know I don't have any traffic sources that are necessarily pointing directly to that. So I have to think that through. Now, if I was doing an email traffic source, and think of this on your own promotions, if I was doing an email blast to my donor list, or in our case, to our users, and I wanted them to go take a look at the Measurement Marketing Academy, I could do that through email. I would see this show up as a landing page. Remember, this is Google Analytics telling you this is the first page they saw when their visit started. So if that happens, and I went, oh, I just sent an email, you know what? I forgot to UTM it. And if I didn't UTM it, it's a lot of it's going to show up as direct none. That's just what's going to happen, because Google's not going to know where they came from unless I use UTMs. So if you see things like that, where you go, well, that page is unexpected, that shouldn't be the majority, that shouldn't be a majority of traffic, especially if it shows up at the top of your list, then you come through here and you go, okay, I've got to fix this, right? I've got to go through here and say, okay, let's go back and maybe go take a look at that and see what those UTMs are coming from, or to see if there's an opportunity for UTMs. So that's all you need to do. You isolate the traffic source of direct none, you go to landing page and you take a look at what are the pages that they're seeing first. And again, just ask yourself the question, does that make sense? And if it does, because you're like, well, they shouldn't be going there directly. They obviously, in my case, did not type this entire thing in directly. So what traffic source might I have just looked at that did do that? And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be emails or something along those lines. So that's what you want to take a look at. And then you go back and say, okay, now let's go see that email we just sent. Was that something that missed UTMs? Because it gives you an opportunity to clean that up. So that's how you would do that. At least a clue of how to figure out where this direct none traffic is coming from. The landing page, secondary dimension, super, super useful when it comes to that. The next question. So is my blog really driving donations? So how do we figure that stuff out? So this is the idea that you've got the blog out there. Maybe you're using it for SEO purposes, but at the end of the day, right, the blog is great and it's generating users, it's generating maybe potential donors, but how do you know, right? How do we actually know what it's actually producing? Well, we're going to go back into the behavior reports. Now, again, why aren't we talking about traffic at this point? Because we're not asking about anything about where they came from. We're asking about the pages they're on. So in this case, blog pages, right? So what blog pages are actually happening. So I can come through here. Now I've got 2 options. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this. You can come into the site content and then landing page report, which we talked about way in the beginning of this. Landing pages being the first pages they saw. And I can come in here and I can search, in my case, because we build our URLs like this, I can search for anything that has /blog in it. And that'll show me any pages that were blog. But is it really any page that they saw that had blog pages on it? And the answer is no, it's not. It's only the first pages. So this is just showing me of the 36 sessions, how many pages where the blog was the first thing they saw in their visit. And this is still useful because I can see landing pages of the blog coming through, and then I can tie it to different goals that may or may not be happening on my goal sheet here. It's kind of a little bit like Source Media Report, right? The landing page they came in on, and somewhere in that visit, here's what they achieved. And you can tie it to results that way using goals. So that is useful. But the question really is, okay, of anybody who sees a blog page, like what are the results that I'm actually getting from this? So in this case, we're going to create another feature. We're going to use another feature here. This is a little bit more advanced. So if you're just starting out for Google Analytics, use what we've talked about so far. Get used to UTMs. That would absolutely be your first thing. Get used to setting goals. That would absolutely be the second thing. And then move into something like this when you're a little bit more comfortable with the setup itself. But you can create a segment. So I'm going to go in and we're going to create a segment. And this is just going to be, we're going to click on where it says new segment. And in my case, we're going to create a segment of just blog users. So people that just saw the blog pages. So I'm going to come into here and we're going to go into conditions. This is where I kind of like to start. I know it's advanced, but it's really not that scary. We're just going to say, okay, what are we looking for? We're going to say we want the page. So pages, not landing pages, just the page. So I'm going to scroll down here. So the page itself, it's the hardest one to find, but it's right in there. It just says page. And this is going to be anything where the page contains /blog, because that's how we've done our website. We've structured it like that. Yours might be something different. Yours might be blog.yoursitename.com, whatever it is. You just go to your blog and figure it out. And then we have the number of sessions now. So this is the visits that include this. So I can say this is mm.io blog readers. And then we click on save. And now I've got a segment up here. You can see it says 4.53% entrances. So I can see this is a segment of people that have seen the landing pages. But what happens now, I'm going to go back to our Source Media Report. So I'm going to go to all traffic and I'm starting to combine things, but really it's just the same couple of things we're combining. I'm going to go back to my Source Media Report. Notice the segment still stays there. So I don't have an all users anymore. I'm just looking at blog readers. That's it. And it reminds you of that. Analytics will tell you, yeah, this is just blog readers. So this is why the traffic numbers went way down here. So because we just don't have that much on our blog. But we've got the segment of blog readers now, and that's all I'm looking at. So every report practically in Google Analytics is now going to be segmented to show me just blog reader stuff. Now, what can I do? Well, now, because I know I'm looking at pages that contained somewhere in their session, somewhere in their visit, they saw one of my blog pages. Doesn't mean it was the first page, but it was somewhere in the visit. There was a page that they saw the blog. I can come down and say, okay, well, let's learn about the traffic sources that are sending those. So I've got Google Organic. It makes sense that search would be something because they're bringing it in, but I also see Infusionsoft email traffic. So that's existing people that we already have a relationship with that are reading a blog post. I've got traffic from other sites coming through. I've got some Facebook paid traffic that we did that was sending some stuff through. I've got Bing coming in that sent in some stuff, right? Some people came in from LinkedIn. So I've got some readers that are coming in, finding blog posts, and those people that are seeing our blog, being exposed to our blog, because I'm using the source medium report, I can associate to goals. And I can say, well, in this case, how many people saw, let's just say the offer page for Win Monthly Pass is one of our programs. We could say, okay, here's how many people that saw the blog page that typed our name in directly, it came in directly to our site or didn't have a UTM. Here's how many people actually ended up seeing that particular offer. Here's how many people from Google Organic actually saw the offer. Here's how many people from my email campaign saw the offer during this particular date range. So I have a better understanding of what's working and what's not in my own marketing. Or in your case, think about this from a donor perspective. What can you learn from your donors about what's working, what's not from your own marketing efforts? Because you could measure how many people actually were exposed, actually saw the page where you could make a donation. How many of those people actually saw a page where they did make a donation? You can make those two separate goals and just flip the goals back and forth in this report. And again, if you wanted to say, okay, was the blog creating that? Is the blog helping for that? You can create a segment of people who saw the blog. And just like you created a segment of people who saw the blog, you can create another segment of people who did not see the blog. And you can say, I want to exclude people who didn't see my blog. So then you can kind of prove, yes, this content marketing stuff is working. It's helping to build the brand. It's helping to get them to know, like, and trust us a little more as an organization and have more trust in what we do and believe in our mission more, so that they're more likely to donate. And you can measure those results because segmentation works across most of the reports in Google Analytics, including donation reports. So you'll have all of that. So segments, if you haven't used segments yet, this is just a very tiny example, but hopefully one that most of you will have a need for, because most of you probably have some sort of blog or outreach that's happening on your site. But you can create this segment for anything. You can show people that are coming in from mobile devices, people that are coming from desktop devices. Anything that you want to segment, you can practically segment Google Analytics. The blog one is a good one to get started with because it helps you just understand how your content marketing is working or not working to improve your results when it comes to your own donations. So that's how we answer that one, using the power of segments with Google Analytics. Now, what can I do to improve my donor journey? Okay, so how do you improve this donor journey? The donors got this journey of coming in to see where they could make a donation. Then they have to engage and actually make a donation or engage to start the donation process, and then ultimately complete the donation itself. It's just kind of a very small but typical donor journey that you might want to measure. Well, how do you know if it's working well? How do you know if it needs improvement? And you don't really know that unless you can measure it, not just what your results are in terms of donations, but how you're actually getting those. So what we call results and how. You need to know both. So how much donations are you getting and how are you actually getting those donations? So how do you do that? Analytics has got a fantastic report for that. So this is something called the funnel visualization report. So where do you find that? This is a new section we haven't looked at yet called conversions. So conversions tells you all about the results of the actions of your users. So you've got the conversion stuff. In conversions, we're going to click where it says goals, and you click where it says funnel visualization. Now I'm going to show you kind of what this end result looks like. This is set up in your goals section of Google Analytics. And really the main point of us bringing it here is to show you what's possible. I want you to know what's possible. It's not that hard to set these up. Just know that you have to set them up in your little admin section back here. But here's how you use this. So you would set it up as a funnel. Not all of these goals are set up as funnels for us. But let's see, this particular one is. So this is a funnel goal. And what I'm going to do is I've just chosen my funnel goal that I've set up previously already. Now what I can do is I can go through here and imagine this being your donor journey. So I can go through here and I've built a funnel. I've built a story of what that customer journey is, what your donor journey is, right? Think about this from your perspective. What would your donor journey be? So I have measured the fact that I had this many people see the course catalog. We've got a bunch of courses, so we have a catalog page. Of those people, how many people saw the membership offer itself? So already I know about half the people, 30% of the people made it through to the offer itself. Then how many of those actually began to interact with that offer? In my case, that's seeing the cart page where they actually go to do that. In your case, it would be where they start the donation process, where they actually start the form and start typing in their details as far as how much they're going to donate. So this is an engagement. So I can see 30% made it from step 1 to step 2. 20%, in this case, 11 people made it to step 3. And then how many people that started that process actually made it through? So I can see this isn't the total number of sales of this product. In your case, it wouldn't be the total number of donations that you got total. It would be the number through this particular path. So you tell Google Analytics, here's the journey I want you to look for. I want you to look for donors who are going to my blog, which you could totally do. People that started with a blog page. Then they went to my donation page. Then they went to the place to actually submit their credit card details to donate. And then they arrived on the thank you page. And you would tell Google Analytics this, again, in the setup where you set up your goals. Now you've got a funnel. Then you can use this report. And this report very clearly tells you, okay, you had X amount of donations, and here's how that actually happened. Now, again, the question was, what can we do to improve the journey? What you do is you look at the difference between these steps and you go, okay, again, does that make sense? Most powerful question you're ever going to ask about Google Analytics. Does that make sense? And you'll go through here and you'll see, okay, actually there is. There's a dropout here, there's a dropout here, there's a dropout here. But in my case, I don't see anything major. Now, there's something called cart abandonment, maybe you've heard of, where 55 to 75% of the people will leave your cart. In your case, leave the donation page maybe before they actually complete the donation. So in my case right here, this is telling me 45% of the people make it through, which is the opposite of that is 55% are abandoning. I'm okay with that. That's an expected number. So I don't see anything really wrong here, except for this top number. I want more people going into the funnel. So what do I do? What's the action I would leave with? Is I would leave with, okay, we have to scale up traffic. Let's figure that out. Let's bring in some Facebook advertising. Let's do some LinkedIn. Let's do whatever we do. Maybe we send out more emails if that's the thing that we're trying to do to generate more traffic, because the journey itself is working as expected. Now, if I saw that 90% of the people, maybe only one person bought from these 11, I saw 90% of people leaving, I would not worry about scaling traffic. I would instead worry about what's going on. Is there a technical difficulty that's causing people to not do this? Is it an issue with messaging where the messaging looks off? Is it too hard to figure out how to do this? And I would work on the design and improve that. So my cart abandonment rate went down. Maybe it's even the messaging of your initial donation page where the expectations being set a little weird. And so they go into to start a donation, but it just doesn't match right, doesn't feel right to them. So you would really look at that. But the numbers, which is the important part here, the numbers would guide you to that action, because you would see, wow, there's a really high abandonment here. More people should be doing this. Why not? Let's go back and look at it. And then when you get it fixed and it's starting to fall in line, then you scale, right? And then you scale traffic or open up, maybe you can create some other donor journeys for some other donation products that you could do. So this particular funnel report, again, it's one of the newer things, right? So we've got a few new things. We talked about landing pages. We talked about the source medium report. We talked about UTMs and goals, and we combined those a lot in different ways to get a lot of different answers. Then we brought in segments where we said about blog pages, and then we had this funnel visualization. So this is just kind of site-wide. There is no segmentation that's available in this particular report, but this is site-wide to say, okay, here's how the donor journey, this is the donor journey I want you to look at. And then you tell me, Google Analytics, you tell me how it's working, right? If it's working, and then you look at the numbers and say, is it good? If it is, great, scale the traffic. If it's not, fix the step that needs the help. So really, really useful reports so far from Google Analytics that can help us get some good quality questions. Finally, question number 7, what traffic sources bring in the most donations? That is, of course, what we want to see. Now, I'm going to jump into this and cover it 2 different ways. One of the ways you might already be thinking about, like you kind of saw it and you did, which is under acquisition, all traffic. This is why it's my favorite report, the source medium report. You can come in here, and in addition to goals, which anybody watching this can do. If you're watching this right now, you can absolutely set up a goal. No matter what, you can do that. So that's what I mean by this is super important. Anybody can do this. But if you're able, and this is the section I wanted to let you see, is you also have the ability to do e-commerce. Now, what e-commerce is, in Google Analytics, traditional e-commerce is going to be recording transactions that are coming through, right? So it's recording transaction details that are coming through. So in this case, there's my segment of blog readers. I now know there are no blog readers who have actually created any sales. So the blog didn't help me on sales. So I'm going to remove this segment. So I just clicked on the little arrow here. I'm going to click on remove. And when I do that, I'm going to go back to all my users now. So now I'm going to see site-wide, here are the traffic sources, and then here are the results from those traffic sources. So I can click on transactions to sort it, which is what I'm going to do right here. So this is the number of transactions. And I can see I've got 3 that came in direct none. I've got 2 that came in from Google Organic. Now that's useful for me to know because I would have assumed the blog was driving traffic from Google Organic, but it's not. So that means other pages that are ranking in Google Organic are actually causing this result. Some came from my email, which again would be expected because I'm sending some personal replies to individuals. One came from Next After. Thank you, Next After. So we have those sales coming through, so I can see the attribution. coming from that. So I know what's working, what's not. And again, think about this as your donors. So what donations have come through, what traffic sources are generating those donations. This is just one way to do it. The other way to do it, now this is kind of generic, right? Now, if you just have donation and that's all you have, that this was probably just going to be fine for you. But in the conversions, remember we talked about conversions being the results of everything. If I go into e-commerce, I'm going to look at kind of the same thing, but in a more detailed way. I'm going to go to e-commerce and you're going to look at product performance or product list. It'll be in there as the word product either way. So when you come in here, you see the different products that'll be listed here that you're recording transactions on. So you'll have like, spring fling donation, or here's my December gala event. And whatever the thing is that you had as a donation can show up here. Again, that is entirely based on how you set it up. So you've got complete ability to customize that. So in this case, this is our product. So what can I do to figure out the traffic sources? Well, I want to break down this primary dimension, which is just the product. I'm going to break this down further by traffic source. So what technique do we use to break things down further? We use a secondary dimension. So I would come in here and I would say, okay, I want to see source medium. And then in this particular case, this is my e-commerce report now. I am only seeing e-commerce stuff. The difference is I'm seeing the actual product names that have come through, and I'm actually seeing the traffic sources for those products. Now, again, in this case, it's exactly what the source medium had, but remember the source medium also had a ton of extra stuff in there that I didn't really need because it wasn't about e-commerce. This way of doing it, where you come into your conversions, e-commerce, product performance section, when you do it like this, you are just looking at e-commerce recorded stuff and the sources and types of traffic coming from that. So you can tie those into results. So then you can learn more about kind of obviously what's working, what's not in your own donor amounts that are coming through. So that's how you do that. All right, so let's review this. So first, start with a question, end with an action. And hopefully you see me do that a lot from examples, right? We saw some that were implementation things we needed to fix. We saw some that were actions that we can take to scale traffic. We saw others that were actions we need to, maybe go in there and do some more investigating on a certain thing. Others might be, okay, we can now bring in some different sources of traffic now based on what we know. Some was with SEO, where I can improve things from SEO. Maybe I take a look at my blog pages and help them to rank even more and be more relevant to what people are searching for. So lots of different things we can do with actions. What were the questions? These are just some of them. We're going to recap all of them here. One, what the pages were the donors were seeing first. That's the landing page report. What the donors were Googling for. That was in the Search Console reports, where we looked at landing pages that were from search. And then we looked at the queries that have come to those pages. Are my emails bringing in donations? Remember, I can only do that if I use UTMs, but I can definitely tie email traffic to a result using goals or e-commerce. Where's all this direct traffic coming from? This direct none traffic, if you do a landing page secondary dimension, so you break that traffic down with landing pages next to it, sometimes that gives you a clue to let you know, oh, wow, we just sent a bunch of traffic. It's that Facebook campaign we just started. We must have forgotten to do that. And so you can see things like that sometimes. Does my blog actually drive donations? Again, created segment. So we said, okay, instead of just landing pages of a blog, which is just people who started at the blog, I want to be able to see anybody who saw any blog page at any point in their visit. Could have been the second, third, or fourth page. Could have been the last page. I don't care. I just want to know if they were exposed to the blog, what happened. That's where segmentation comes in. We've created the segment for that. And what can I do to improve my donor journey? In this case, the funnel visualization. You create a funnel. You basically tell Google Analytics, hey, listen, I want you to measure for donors that go from this step to this step to this step to ultimately complete this thing, obviously in this case, a donation. And then you will look at your funnel visualization report. It'll tell you the results, how many people actually did complete the donor journey, and the how steps. So you know how you actually got there. And then again, ask yourself if it makes sense. If so, great, scale it. If not, go back and fix the step that needs help. And finally, we talked about traffic sources again, but this time bringing in donations. And we tied in e-commerce now to it. So we went from goals, which everybody has access to e-commerce, which most of you can probably do if it's not set up already. So it's a little different for everybody how to set that up and possible for everybody to do that. Just depends how. But e-commerce is really useful because you can put in specific details. You can actually make it a product. Your donation can be a product, and you can tie traffic sources to it so that you can build from there. All right. Also, by the way, that'll help you find your average donor amounts. Next steps for you, list out at least 7 questions. Now you can take these, cheat sheet, use this and go through and find these 7 questions for yourself just to get practice and kind of follow along on your own, especially if you're just starting out, but at least 7 questions. And if these are, these ones are down, you don't need these ones, ask 7 more. Then think about what actions will you take based upon those questions, and then jump into Google Analytics, because you cannot do this without riding the bike. You can't watch me do it and then get insights. You have to jump into Google Analytics on your own. You got to practice it, because I promise you, it will not, you'll watch me do it, go, oh, it's pretty simple. It's no big deal. Then you get into it and you'll be like, man, what it doesn't look at all the same. Well, how did this happen? How did I get here? Things like that are going to happen. It's called riding the bike, right? You watch me ride a bike. It looks great. You get on a bike. First thing you do is you fall off because you got to understand balance. And no matter how many videos you watch, you don't get balance unless you practice. And it's the same thing with Google Analytics. So get in there and ride that bike, practice Google Analytics. Remember, UTMs will help you with that because it identifies your traffic sources. Goals, everybody here can do that and set up a goal. So now you're tying traffic source to the result of that traffic source. And of course, e-commerce, for those of you that are able to do that, that gives you more specific details around donations amount. It'll help you find your average donor value that's coming through. So there's some amazing capabilities that analytics will allow you as a nonprofit to improve your own fundraising. And of course, segmentation, where you're saying, okay, how is mobile devices? This should be something we focus on, or versus desktop, which ones are bringing more donations in? Does our blog actually help? You can segment by traffic source. You can say, I just want to see all my Facebook traffic or all my email traffic. And you can do segmentations like that. It's pretty amazing what's possible with Google Analytics. So with that, I think we are time for some Q&A.
Mercer, wow, that's amazing. Even just sitting through the different course videos of yours and going through this, it's all, even I'm in Google Analytics all the time. And this just prompts new ideas for myself just to dive in and figure out more of what's going on. So this is so helpful. I think just based on the questions that are already rolling in, I think this is really helpful for people in the nonprofit space as well, figuring out how do I track my donors and get new insights into growing fundraising. So thank you. This is so helpful.
Excellent.
I've got a few different things I want to remind you listeners of, but while we're going through this, you can use that chat box again. As you're kind of like putting all your thoughts together here, we'll give you a minute or so to put some additional questions into the chat box, and then we'll come back and we'll do a little Q&A. Just another reminder about this coronavirus resource. Thanks for the shout out, Mercer, about this tool.
This is awesome. When I saw this and I was like, you're putting copies of email, like that's unbelievable. Like I love this resource. It is amazing.
Well, I could take very little personal credit for it. It really is a huge shout out to Kevin Peters, who's our CTO, going through and building this whole dashboard system to analyze this data. But hopefully it's helpful for you at the nonprofit fundraiser to really dig in and get some new ideas as to how can you craft messaging around coronavirus, COVID-19, be relevant, be helpful, and then also understand there's other organizations that are continuing to plow forward and fundraise even in the midst of this. So where do you fit in? It's just hopefully will help prompt some new ideas, some new questions, and some new insights. So you can check that out, nextafter.com/coronavirus. Now, you've sat through this whole training session. There's this full certification course that Mercer has put together for you on courses.nextafter.com. The best news I have for you today is that you can actually take this for free, assuming you haven't already used this discount code yet. But if you want to get one free certification course from the Next After Institute, you can go to courses.nextafter.com, use the code LearnFromHomeTry. You'll get one free course. You can use that to dive deep into Google Analytics for nonprofits, get a certificate. And this actually is going to go a whole lot deeper than Mercer even went today. So there's lots of questions, even just about like, how do I get started? How do I make sure that it's actually set up to track the data well? Or I have an account, but there's no data. Like Mercer, you go through that in depth.
100% go through this course. It goes into deep dive, how to do UTMs, how to structure the UTMs, lots of examples for you. So we've only had an hour together, right? So there's only so much we can cover. And a lot of this was really there to show you what's possible with Google Analytics. This course shows you, yes, it's possible, but here's how to set it up. Here's how to think about it. Here's the strategy. Here's the recipe. Here's the formula so that you can really get the most juice from the squeeze, essentially, when it comes to this particular tool for nonprofits.
And where does somebody need to be at to really get value out of this course? Like if you, do you need to have some experience in the platform, or can you go in totally cold?
The word Google and analytics in the same sentence, that's the only qualification I need. Now, and all joking aside, it is made for beginners, right? We specialize in beginners and helping people, because a lot of people just consider themselves, I'm not a numbers person, right? We hear that a lot. I'm not a numbers person. We don't even speak like numbers people, right? Yeah. It's not about that. This is not a course design. This is almost a better way to answer that question. Who's it not for? It's not for a data analyst. It's not for a data scientist, because they already know this stuff, right? They're not necessarily going to get the most from this. But anybody who's kind of like, I know it's like I have to take my medicine with analytics sometimes. It's like, well, I know I have to do it. I don't really want to. We've been postponing this forever, but I know that if I do this stuff, I could get better answers and we can guide things. It's going to be perfect for you. And even if you have some experience with it, where you're like, yeah, I'm actually pretty comfortable. I'm not the data analyst kind of thing, but I'm pretty comfortable with it. I would still go through it, because you will find there are some surprising tips in there that you can use to level up everything. I promise you will find those in there.
Cool. And that's, I mean, again, that's exactly where I'm at. It's helpful every time I go through it and get new little ideas here and there. So yeah, again, you can get this course for free if you use the code Learn From Home Try. You can also, if you want, you can get 50% off a membership, which gives you access to every single course on the platform. There's 8 different courses, from Google Analytics to just learning how to start optimizing your fundraising, to emails, to donation pages, and a whole bunch of different stuff. So you can check that out, nextafter.com/membership. Use this code Learn From Home Join to get 50% off a membership. Now, we've got a bunch of questions. So honestly, this is probably the most questions that we've ever had on a webinar, like before the Q&A time, and I'm sure more will roll in. So this is good. That either means that everything was super confusing or it just was really thought-provoking, and we're going to hope it was the latter.
Let's find out.
So let's dig in. Here's a question from Ryan. This was asked at the very beginning. So what do I do if I have some pages that are the same, but I'm seeing them because one URL doesn't have a slash at the end, and another URL does? What do I do?
Yeah. So this is perfect. And I am going to, shameless plug, I'm going to shout out to the course that you can get for free, right? To go to the Next After courses and get that. We will talk about exactly how to fix those issues. So I'm going to show you where this is, because we won't have time to go into everything. But in Google Analytics, in your admin section, there's something called views. So you see here, we have a lot of different views. Chances are most of you just have one that says all website data, but you should have something that looks more like this. There's a bunch of different ones out there. So we've got one that has no parameters. We've got one with parameters. So that's an example of where you might see like, question mark contact ID equals 1, 2, 3, and it splits it up through a million different pages. And it's all sort of what we call fractured, right? You want to combine them all. So we have that. But one of the other things that you can do, the way to do that, I should say, is filters. So I'm just going to show you what these look like. So filters change how things look in analytics, and it structures the information so that it's easier to see the story. Because to Ryan's point, it's really hard when you've got 7 different pages that are really the same page, but they look like 7 different pages, and you have to mentally add them together in your head all the time. It's annoying. But you can create a filter that combines them, including things like the slash. So I think this particular view probably has that. Yep. So we have a filter that comes through, and this is a little complicated, but we have guides on how to do this. You've got resources on how to do this. There are copy and paste things that you'll be able to go through in the course itself. In the Next After course, all of this is in there. But this one basically goes through and takes anything that doesn't have a slash and adds a slash to it, so that the things without a slash and with a slash don't exist anymore. Going forward, they'll just be under the same page. And when you do that and you combine some of these other filters, again, we talk about this. It's the very first thing we start with, because it's the thing that people don't realize they need to do is set up Google Analytics. They think they just have to turn it on or activate it, right, by putting the script on the page. That's not at all what the first step is. I mean, yes, it's the first step to light it up, but you can't use it until you actually do setup. And so we spend a lot of time in the first part of the course on the setup, so that it does make more sense when you actually look into the information. It's a great question, Ryan.
That's perfect. And that's super helpful, super helpful. So short answer, you do a little bit of magic and it's gone.
And it's entirely possible. And it's what filters are there for. Like they're exactly there to fix stuff like that. Yep.
Cool. The next question is from Linda, and you may have already answered it here, but she says that she has an account for her website. When I go to it, there's no information. Do I need to do something to activate it?
So when you go into your account, there's like nothing showing. The first thing I would make sure is in your admin section that you got your tracking code. Make sure that it's installed on your site. So that would be the first thing. If you have no users, especially if you know that you have users. Now, if you just started and maybe you don't have any users, I get it. But you want to make sure that at the very least, this is on there. Some of you might be using Tag Manager to install Google Analytics to get beyond the scope of this training, but there's Tag Manager is another way to do it. You might have a plugin on your site if you're using a WordPress site, or some other built-in integration that just you type in this number to that integration. So there's different ways to activate it. But that's what I would look at is, okay, if you're on this site and if your friends are on the site and it's getting traffic, but analytics is like, I don't know, then there's probably something wrong here where this number is probably wrong or this code isn't on the page. That's what I would look tord.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
We also talk about how to get it set up in the course as well. And I'll just assume that I'm going to do the shameless plug all the time, but all of this is in there. So I just want to emphasize that.
Cool. Yeah, and you kind of said this, but if you're using WordPress, there's a plugin, there's a Google Analytics plugin. If you're using something like Squarespace or Wix, it's built in. I think you just need that ID.
Yep.
If you're using something else, feel free to send us an email and we can help you try to troubleshoot that. This is quite a question from organization, Future Citizens Foundation. They're wondering, will constant contact and MailChimp traffic show up in the source medium report?
It will, as long as you're using UTMs. It will, as long as you're using UTMs. So as an example, what you would do is whatever your site is, then you would just type in MailChimp if that's what you were looking for, right? So MailChimp email for, my donation program, whatever it was, that you would put in as the point of it. And you'll see down here, this is the UTM. So what you do in MailChimp or Constant Contact or any email service provider, where you set up the link, where you would normally just say, here's the page to link to, you link to this now. So it's still the same page you would link to normally, only now you include all this extra stuff. So these are, you're going to hear them reference as UTMs, UTM tagging or UTM tags, stuff like that. It just means these little parameters that are on the end of the URL. They do not affect anything. They won't break anything. I always will ask you to trust but verify, which means type it in, go to your email, send an email to yourself, make sure the link works so that you didn't accidentally put in 2 question marks or something like that. Sometimes people mistake stuff, so always test it. But this is all you need to do. And then it'll automatically show up in your analytics under your source media report.
Perfect. And some of those tools will do that automatically. There might be like an advanced setting to do it. But you get more control if you do it this way.
Yeah, you get exactly right. So some platforms are getting better at like, hey, do you want us to UTM this for you? Because they're building those integrations in, and you are more than welcome to use those if they're useful for you. But otherwise, override them if they're not. And you can always email their support and say, why, how would I do that because they will, I guarantee you it's not the first time you've been asked that question, and they'll have docs on how to do it.
Great, super helpful. Here's another question from Chris, wondering, can I measure, and you talked about this somewhat, but we can recap. Can I measure our donations in Google Analytics? And would I be able to see that data in the conversion reports?
Yes, and yes. So you can do it 2 ways. The one that everybody can do, because it's super simple, is you can come in here and you just set up a goal. So you can come in through here, like in this case, here's a purchase goal that we set up for one of our programs. And it's just when this is going to look a little more complicated than the rest, but basically it's just when they see a certain thank you page, that's it. So when they see a certain thank you page, it'll fire it up. You can just put in your thank you page of donations, you're off to the races. Or you can set up e-commerce. So again, you would turn that on first, and then you have to set it up. Now how you set that up is going to be different. So I would always start with a goal, and I would always have a goal. So even if you are using e-commerce, I'm still a fan of using goals so that you have both ways of measuring that.
Great, thank you. So that's Chris. Let's see. We can probably roll these 2 questions together. This is always a fun one. Cynthia asked just purely what are UTMs, and I think you've addressed that. But then Elaine also asked specifically, what does UTM stand for?
I knew it was going to come up. Yes, it's a trivia. That's how you know it's going to be a little trivia around that when everyone's doing their virtual drinking sessions now at home. So okay, so the UTM is right. These are UTMs, and again, go to your emails. If you're not familiar with these, the first time you've heard about them, start clicking those links in the emails. Look in the URLs. You will see them everywhere. When you click on ads from Facebook, you will see these. And what's nice about
after email you get
next after, you're going to see them, right? And you'll see how next after is actually classifying the source, the medium, and everything else. So it's nice because you can learn from other people as far as how they're doing it. What UTM stands for, again, this is the trivia part of it. Originally, way back in the day, Google Analytics was not Google Analytics. It was actually purchased from another company. That company was called Urchin. So URCHIN, Urchin. And Urchin had Urchin tracking modules that they would create, otherwise known as UTMs. And so when Google bought Urchin, and they already had these things out there, and they're already out in the millions of sites already, when they bought them, they just kept it. So now everyone just calls them UTMs. So there you go. But that's the original definition of what a UTM is, but nobody calls them that. So if you say, hey, I need to get the Urchin tracking thing, people will have no idea what you're talking about. So UTMs.
That's great. And now, Elaine, you have a little trivia question to impress your friends with. So congratulations.
We need a little animated GIF, like, now you know.
Oh, well, we're writing a jingle this next week. It's going to be good. Let's see. Another question from Ryan. He's wondering, how would you make sure that you're not counting bot traffic?
Good question. So there are a few ways to do it. The easiest way is if you come into your view settings, if you scroll down, there is a little bot filtering here. So when you go into your views, you would check this box, and it's Google's way of, Google's pretty good about trapping spam and Gmail and things like that. They know a thing or two about bots and spiders for sure. So just doing this helps an awful lot when it comes to that. That said, if you have some traffic where all of a sudden it's like everyone's excited because you're like, whoa, we got this, maybe you got a couple hundred users a day, and all of a sudden you get 25,000 users. If there wasn't an obvious reason for that, like if you're around the team going, yeah, we finally mailed that 100,000 person list, so we got 25,000, that makes sense, great. But if it's like, well, that doesn't make sense, what you can do is you can come into your audience reports, and in the audience, it's all about who the users are. So you can come in and you can maybe do things like geolocation and say, okay, where are they located? And you might find that there are a swarm of users that have come in from Indonesia for no apparent reason, right? I just happen to be hovering over Russia at that point. How odd, but yes, but so you might have this, weird little thing that happened. But it's not routine that stuff like that happens typically. So I wouldn't be too concerned with it. It does happen from time to time for sure. And there are ways to adjust that. So if it is happening specific to your situation, we can help out where we can. But if you just exclude known bots and spiders, that takes care of a lot of it. And that is not a setting by default for a lot of people. So just make sure you turn that back on if it's not.
That's a good note. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question from Jeff. And so our own Justin Beasley was in here in the chat trying to answer some questions. He had a good answer here too, but we can recap it for everyone too.
Sure.
Jeff is wondering, if I redirect URLs, will I see those as traffic sources? And then will redirected URLs hurt my Google search ranking?
So possibly, and depends. How's that for a consultant answer?
Great.
There are times where you might see a page show up in your Google Analytics that is a redirect. And the reason I say possibly is because it depends how you redirect them. So for example, we have a WordPress site. So this is our site. So we've got a WordPress site that has a plugin called Pretty Links Pro that we use for redirects. Yoast also does this for anyone using WordPress. You have Yoast SEO, they do redirects too. Those redirects don't have Google Analytics on them at all. So when the browser sees the page, it will immediately switch to the proper page. So that redirect page doesn't actually load, so Analytics never sees it. That's a proper redirect, right? That's how most of them should be done. There are occasional times where a page kind of loads and it's like, hang on a second, we're getting you to the right spot. And then it redirects to the right spot. So that's an example of a page that you will see in Google Analytics because the actual analytics code had time to load. And so it would show there, but it shouldn't. And so if you do see that, that's where I would go back to your dev team and say, hey, this page is loading, even though we shouldn't be seeing it load. So let's go back and change how we're doing that redirect. So that's what I would look at in terms of that. And then the second question, that was the depends question, was what was the second half of that? Remind me.
Yeah. So will a redirected URL potentially hurt my Google search rank?
Again, shouldn't, I am not an SEO expert, so to take what I say with a huge spoonful of salt. But it's how you redirect it. So we'll in Pretty Link Pro, it actually shows you, it says, oh, do you want to make this a temporary redirect or a permanent redirect? And that way, all the SEO juice that was going to the original redirect, if you're switching it to another page, it should continue just to be pushed over to that page. That's my understanding. But again, I'm not an SEO expert.
Great. Thank you. That's helpful. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that answers your question, Jeff. If there's more you want to dive into, again, feel free to drop another question in here or shoot us an email too. A question from a group called Unseen. They're wondering, when using UTMs, where do I use the link? Do you replace the link in your email with it? If I have a donate button, do I swap out the link? Kind of some of that.
So good question. So emails, yes, wherever you would type in the email and you would say, oh, normally link to, mysite.com. Now you're going to link to mysite.com, UTM source, blah, 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 right? You put all those parameters in there and then the UTMs will show up. Now the question on the button, the answer is, when they're on your site. So for example, let's pretend this was a donation page. So here it was like, okay, please donate. And it's like, start your donation. You can sort of see in the very lower left-hand corner. Yeah, in fact, this actually is a redirect too, which is good. So this page links to the free resources page, which is really our Toolbox membership. What you don't see there, because you can see that hyperlink where it is in the lower left-hand corner of my screen. What you don't see there is anything that says UTM stuff. This is important. So UTMs are not to be used for people already on your site. Because remember, the point of a UTM is to identify the traffic coming to your site. Once they're on your site, they don't have it. There's no more traffic to identify. They're already from wherever they came from, right? So you don't re-identify it. So if I said, oh, well, this is the home page and I wanted to do a UTM traffic source of homepage. If I did put UTMs here, what would happen is Google Analytics would force the close of a session of a visit, would force the visit to stop, and it would create a whole new visit. So if I was a new visitor right now on this page and I clicked on the button that had a UTM on it, and people do this with blog posts all the time. So check, if you do blog posts, chances are it's there. What would happen is Google Analytics goes, well, I can't have 2 traffic sources for the same session, right? One session, one visit cannot have 2 traffic sources, can only have 1. So it's going to force close the visit. Then it's going to create another one. Now it's going to look like two sessions, and it's going to show that I'm a returning visitor. And so now all your numbers are kind of messed up in analytics. So do not do UTMs on buttons on your site already. But if it's buttons from somebody else's site that's coming to your site, meaning they are a traffic source for you, and the point of the UTM is to identify the traffic coming from somewhere else to your site, UTMs are 100% fine. So that's how that works.
Great. Hopefully that's helpful for unseen.
And I'll show it just real quick. So this, just because I forgot we did this here, but this redirect is the ELP free resources, what it says in the lower left-hand corner. You can see where it actually is pointing. But when I click on this, this is an example of that redirect that I was talking about. So if you look up here, it's on completely different domain. So we've taken that button link and we've redirected it. So the free resources page never shows up in our analytics. If it did, there would be an issue in the redirect. So this page is what shows up when people click on those links. And that's would be proper. That's what we would want. And that's how you can test it too. You can kind of see that.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you for that answer. We are going to do like 2 more questions here. I know Ryan's got a couple more questions. There's a couple more here. If you have additional ones, you can feel free to email me directly at nathan@nextafter.com. Chris or Mercer, is there a good way for people to reach out directly to you?
Yeah, Mercer@measurementmarketing.io. It's perfect. So
great. Let's do 2 more questions here. One of them I can answer real quick because it's simply, how long is that course? It's about 6 hours of content. I believe that was my latest count. But it's also totally on demand. So you don't have to like sit down, block out 6 hours and go through it all in one day. That would be so much information overload.
Not fun at all.
No, but you can take
it. Made it fun, but 6 hours, it's a lot.
Yeah. So you can do it in chunks, do a session at a time, do a couple videos at a time, and then you can always go back and dive back into specific reports and areas where you need sort of a reminder. So that's how long the course is. And then let's do one last question. It's about Google Tag Manager. What is it? What are your thoughts on it? Should people use it?
Yes, I love Tag Manager. Okay, so the way to think about Tag Manager, analytics does a good job of collecting stuff and storing stuff and reporting on stuff. So if I look into, I go back to the source, or where is it? Source medium under all traffic. So we'll go back into the source medium report. So this is one report that kind of shows analytics at its best, right? It's collecting the different source mediums, it's collecting the different users, and it's recording all these engagement metrics. And then it's tying results because it's got goals, and then it builds a report. So it collected all this information, it stored it in its database, and then it built a report that was available to me so I could see that. What Tag Manager does is it enhances the collection ability. So analytics can only collect certain things on its own without some heavy development and very technical customization, which is hard to manage. So I wouldn't even try. But we've customized ours. So if you go into, let's see, I'll show you. So we've done things like, let me just do this. We'll go into our events. So we've gone into different events that we've created. So we've got different journey events. It's something we call like eyes on the journey, where we can see different things coming through when somebody has an impression, which is when they first load up our page. Introduced is when they're there 10 seconds later. Now think about that. How do we say 10 seconds, right? Analytics can't do that. Interested is when they scroll 40% of the way within a couple of minutes. Investigated is when part of the offer that we were asking for, think about this from your donor perspective. How is the donation page not working because people are coming to the page and leaving? Or is it because they're coming to the page, they're scrolling down, they're looking at it, but they're just not taking the action? Well, based upon what feedback you get, what story you know, right, what visibility you have into that process, you have 2 completely different actions. One of them is probably something's wrong with the headline or something like that. We got to work on the expectation there. The other one is there's something, the headline is fine. They got through the copy. They're just not taking that donation step. What's wrong, right? And so you can create things like this. Like this shows us kind of a journey of the user, of our users. But again, and this is 100% we customized. We made up all this stuff. Tag Manager makes this really easy to do. What's also nice about Tag Manager, because it starts collecting the information, it sends the details to analytics, but it also can send the details to Facebook. So Tag Manager becomes in charge now. So instead of putting a Facebook pixel on different pages and then a conversion pixel on different pages, and then somebody copies that page, which copies that conversion pixel, and now things are all messed up, you just tell Tag Manager, hey, listen, when somebody becomes a donor, tell Google Ads, so that Google Ads knows about it, because we want to use that Google grant money, right? So tell Google Ads, and also tell Facebook that a conversion occurred, and also go tell Google Analytics that an event occurred called a donor conversion, so that they can track a goal in Google Analytics. And by the way, go ahead and push the e-commerce information into Google Analytics. So Tag Manager can do all of those things. It is a fantastic tool. Again, much bigger than we have time for to talk about. But what it really does is it helps you to collect the behaviors that are happening on your site and actually get a lot more visibility into the actions that are happening. It's not just page views, but it's scroll, it's time, it's what sections of the page are they seeing for how long. All of that stuff you can tell Tag Manager to measure for you. Then it can send it into Google Analytics where you can build reports, but it can also send it to Facebook and everything else. So it helps you to leverage things. Long term, I would say everybody watching this will eventually be using Tag Manager as your organization grows anyway. So it's one of those things you will grow into. So if you're asking that question of like, gee, should we be using Tag Manager? I'd say it's probably time to investigate. Like, that's how you know you're ready to investigate. If you're kind of like, I don't even care about that right now, I'm trying to figure out goals, then don't, right? Figure out analytics first, get that one going, because that's doing all three things right now: collect, store, and report. But eventually use Tag Manager to do collections. Eventually you'll use Data Studio to build reports, and the whole thing kind of grows as you grow. It's a really good question.
Amazing. Mercer, this has been awesome. And lots of great feedback from people here too that loved it and are really getting some great insights from it. So thank you so much on behalf of everyone tuning in. Any parting words, final words for people?
No, really, it comes back down to riding that bike. We talk a lot about this. If you're watching a bunch of videos, watching somebody do some sort of skill building, you do not have that skill. You've just been exposed to that. So when you actually practice the skill, it's different. And you will absolutely, I promise you, things are not going to work as easy as you think they are. So that's normal, and expect that. And that's permission for you to get in there and be like, set a goal. He said it was easy, no big deal. You set a goal and it doesn't work. And you're like, what's going on? Like, that's why you ask for help, right? But take that course, go back and take the course and ride the bike and practice this stuff. Because the more that you ask questions, the better you will get at asking questions. The more that you tie that to actions, again, don't worry about being right. It doesn't matter about being right. Just practice that skill. You will get better at asking questions that tie to actions. You'll get better about taking the actions, and things just start to improve. But you got to ride the bike. In the beginning of riding a bike, you're wobbly, you fall off a lot of times, and then you get better, then you get better, then you get better. And that's what the exact same journey is for you in Google Analytics. So I am excited for you, and I thank you for joining us during the call. Hopefully it was a help and get you a start.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Again, we'll send that recording out here in a couple of hours. Stay healthy, stay safe, and enjoy the course. Take care. Have a good one.